So we're going to go into the afternoon portion for today, and we're going to be doing the book of Malachi. And so I anticipate being finished early. So once again, we'll open it up to a question and answer period once the portion is done. For anyone who has questions, issues, or concerns. Maybe, just maybe, depending on what we find in this portion, I might be able to get up the courage to sing Unity, but we're going to go through this portion first, and we'll see how things work out. So we're going to be going through the book of Malachi, and this is going to conclude our discussions in the book of the prophets. And just want to touch on a couple of things before we start. It's interesting when you look at in most books, Malachi is the last book in the Holy Scriptures of the Old Testament. In some books, they have chronicles, but Malachi is probably chronologically the last book in the history of the children of Israel, before you start to get into the apocryphal books like Maccabees and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of interesting things related to Malachi, but one of the things that I wanted to touch on is, if you notice in some books, especially in like Christian Bibles, it'll say, or a full Bible which has the Old and the New Testament in it, you'll see Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, and then you see the rest of the books of the prophets termed as the later prophets, giving the impression that all of those took place later. But actually, as we've gone through and you've seen, as we've gone through the book, a lot of those took place simultaneously. And the book of Malachi is no different. The book of Malachi actually took place at the same time as Ezra and Nehemiah, right after the temple was built. And then you can look at it. The reason that I'm pointing it out is because when you look at some of the things that God says at that time, they were just coming back from the Babylonian captivity, but they were still captives. They were still, at this point, we were still under the auspices of a captor. The only difference was we were actually back in the land. So when you read some of the things that discussed in Malachi, and the interesting part about this is the book of Malachi goes through a lot of stuff. God goes through, he touches on a lot of different things, and the things that God touches on in the book of Malachi, us understanding that we were back in our land, but we were still captive, will give us some insight as to how we as a people, how we looked at God and also how God looked at us. So as we're now, quote unquote, free, but we're still under a captor, we need to consider some of the things that God is saying in the book of Malachi, because a lot of the things that God says in the book of Malachi really would relate to us, the things that we're going through today. I'm going to touch on a couple of things before we go. So Malachi is probably not the prophet's name.
Okay.
And if you notice, when they talk about the other prophets, they talk about, they give a name, a background, some sort of a history. So you see like Jonah, the son of Amittai, or Micah, the Morasite, or you see different things like that. But when you see Malachi, it's just the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. And so rather than Malachi being his name, it's probably more like my messenger. And And if you look at it that way, this is a message that's coming straight from God to those at the time. Now, some people, if you look in some books, they'll attribute Malachi to actually be Ezra. But just look at it as my messenger versus a particular person, because when you look at it that way, it provides more of an impact, and it's God speaking directly to the children of Israel at this time. But before we go into that, I just want to touch on a couple of current event things like I normally do. So last week, they had the individual in Kentucky who killed 3 officers and wounded like 5 or 6 others. We talked about that last week. This week, you had 2 very interesting incidents that occurred. One incident was the July 4th shooting in, was it Illinois? It was in Illinois. Right, it was in Illinois, where and when they caught the individual who did the shooting and committed those murders, they caught him during a traffic stop. Wow. And once again, he was taken alive, unharmed. Yet, in the neighboring state of Ohio, in Akron, there was another traffic stop with a black man who 8 cops shot him 60 times with 90 bullets.
Very different. Very different.
Very different. 8 cops, 60 times he was hit, and 90 bullets were recovered. Also, a traffic stop.
Right.
He was also, as we start to hear it again, unarmed. And there was talk about whether or not there was a gun in the seat. He had gotten out of the vehicle and he was running away from the police, and he was shot 60 times with 90 bullets. And the reason that I feel it's important to talk about these different things is twofold. One, we are not free. This is not where we belong. And if at any point we believe that we're going to get any type of justice in a place where God did not send us for justice, then you're sadly mistaken. And I think that this particular week was real interesting because it shows you the stark contrast right in your face of how Caucasian Americans are dealt with and how we're dealt with. The other part that's important is I understand that we were taught that God is love. I understand that we were taught that God loves everybody and God is all mercy, all love, and all of those different things. And I'm going to say that the creator of the heavens and the earth, that's not him.
No, sir.
And it's important for us to understand that that's not him. Because when we go out and we make certain decisions, we need to understand that the decisions that we make are going to directly affect us. The Maftira this morning, and I want to remember how she said it, because as always with Kukwa, if I misquote her, I'm going to hear it. She said, we have to learn to tame our arrogance in order to not offend God. And that was deep. Because everything that we look at and everything that we consider, we like to cast blame. because we've also been the victim. We're always the victim. Everything that happened is because someone did something to us, and too often time we don't consider what we may have done and our behavior that may have precipitated certain things. And so again, I don't want anybody to feel bad. I don't want anybody to feel anything like that. However, I want us to know that our actions are, God is going to deal with us exactly in accordance with our actions, whether our actions are good or whether our actions are bad. And the interesting part about our actions is a lot of times when we act, we don't think we're so bad. A lot of times when we act, we don't believe that we have malintent for the person or the things that we're acting against. However, the intent in most cases plays a small role when it comes to the consequences and repercussions that are due based on the outcome.
There you go.
And so that's the thing that I want us to consider, because God is going to go into a lot of different things right now. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times, I swear for God, I wish that Christians and Muslims and all of those different religions can read this book, read it alike. Because one of the things that you'll see, regardless to what religion you in, you'll see if you're talking about the God of the Old Testament, the God that created the heavens and the earth, the lack of understanding, the misunderstanding that we have about God is vast. Because God is not what we were taught. God is not who we were led to believe he was. And with all of that, we'll just let the word of God speak for itself.
The burden of the word of Yehovah to Yisrael by Malachi. I loved you, saith Yehovah.
And I'm sorry, and before you go in, so I just want to, and so if you actually look at it in Hebrew, it says, the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by my messenger, but Malachi by my messenger. Just consider it that way, because I want us to consider it in a manner where this is God directly talking to you and directly talking to me. Because when you personalize God's message without worrying about, oh, this person, that person, when you personalize God's message for you and set your mind to believe that this message is God directly speaking to you, we may be more receptive to the message. And I'm glad I remembered, because I want to read something that I saw the other day. And when I read it, I just thought that it was very profound. This is referring to intelligence, right? And it says, you must always be willing to truly consider evidence that contradicts your beliefs and admit the possibility that you may be wrong. Listen, you must always be willing to truly consider evidence that contradicts your beliefs and admit the possibility that you may be wrong. Intelligence isn't knowing everything. It's the ability to challenge everything you know. These children are harassing me right now. You get in a group chat with a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Oh, man.
Ooh, they text all night. They just don't stop. Listen, with them, I'm gonna just say this right now. I love it, because I love to hear them, because it's important to hear them. Even when they're texting me at 1, 2 in the morning, even when in the span of 20 minutes, they will literally send 500 messages in a span of 20 minutes. And what most of the messages are a thumbs up. and emojis and all those different things and SKSK and all of that good stuff. But I love it because when you listen to children who you admit and recognize are supposed to be the future, it gives you insight and understanding about what God might be showing you that you might not understand, which is a different perspective. So we're going to pick it up in verse 2.
I loved you, saith Yahweh. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us?
So now, this is a theme that we're going to see constantly throughout the book of Malachi, which is God is saying something and we're not recognizing the fault in us. So in everything that God is saying, we're questioning. This happens probably about 3-4 times where God says, I loved you. And the response is, wherein have you loved us? But the problem is because we were slaves at this point, and being a slave, sometimes you don't recognize what love actually is. And that's what I think we need to consider. We get into relationships sometimes, and we have this multicultural diversity where we're in relationships with different types of people from different backgrounds than we are. And a lot of times what love means to me may be vastly different than what love means to you. My mother, I can count on one hand the times that I remember that my mother said, I love you. I can count it. However, I knew that she loved me because I knew when I was sick, she was there. I knew that the lights never went off. I knew that there was food always in the house. And so for her, that was the way that she showed through her sacrifice that she cared. Some people don't see it that way. Some people see love different and expect love different. And that's okay. That's why communication is important. And that's why having an open mind is important, because sometimes you need to be open to the fact that someone may show love differently than how you were groomed to accept what love is. And I'm going to just give my disclaimer right now. Love does not come in the form of black eyes or anything like that. So I'm going to just say that straight.
Right.
I'm going to just say that straight because there are certain cutoffs and there were certain standards that I'm just going to put out there right then and there. But when it comes to people sacrificing and the things that they do, accept that. And then sometimes it means that you might have to tell people, listen, I'm used to being loved or shown love this way. And that aspect of communication is important too. So God says, I have loved you. And yet we say, and you say, wherein hast thou loved us? Come on.
Was not Esau Yaakov's brother, saith Yahweh? Yet I loved Yaakov, but Esau I hated. I made his mountains a desolation and gave his heritage to the jackals of the wilderness. Whereas Edom says, we are beaten down, but we will return and build the waste places.
So hold on right there. So, and this is God showing a contrast between us and Esau, who's Edom, who's Jacob's two sons, Israel, us, Esau, Edom. And God is saying, because God made the promise to Abraham and said, I'm going to make you the father of a multitude of nations. Yitzchak, God loved. Yaakov, God loved. But the difference, the contrast between how God treated Jacob and how he feels about Jacob and how he feels about Esau is quite different. But I want us to consider, look at what they said about Esau. Mm-hmm. He said, Esau I hated, and I made his mountains a desolation. And this took place during that Babylonian captivity where Babylon came through and destroyed everybody. And he said, and I gave his heritage to jackals of the wilderness. Wherefore Edom says, we are beaten down, but we will return to build up the waste places. Edom said, we recognize where our home is. Things are bad. Things were damaged. Things were destroyed. Yet we're going to return and we're going to fix it. Mm-hmm. We got comfortable in captivity. We got comfortable in captivity then. comfortable in captivity now. And that was part of what you see in the book of Haggai when God said you have your nice houses and the house of God is laid waste. Y'all was sent back here to do this. Y'all was sent back here to build. And so I'm saying for us now, for us being comfortable in where we are and in the places that we are, I'm telling you that this is not what God had in mind for Israel. God did not have in mind for Israel that we would become comfortable worshiping in 10, 15 different places in New York City alone. That's not what God sent us back for. That's not what God brought us to knowledge of self for, because if we're supposed to be a nation of priests and we're supposed to be doing things in accordance with Torah, Torah has one everything. One understanding, one central place, one temple, one law, one all of those different things. So if we have not gotten to the point where we all have one understanding, one temple, one central place, then that shows us that we have some more work to do. And we should not be comfortable with these vast varieties of different understandings, because these varieties of different understandings cause problems that you would not believe. But God's going to talk about all that. So Edom said, we were beat down, but we're going to rebuild. Come on.
Thus saith Yehovah Tzebaoth, they shall build, but I will throw down.
Amen.
They shall be called the border of wickedness.
Amen.
And the people who God hates forever.
And so before you go into the next verse, and it shows you that the God that they talk about that's all love, that's not him. Because he told you that this is a group of people that's going to build, and all of this came about, the feeling that God came about Edom, all came about because how Edom dealt with Israel. He said that when we was just trying to pass through and we just wanted to get to the land, starting from way back then, and we just wanted to get into the land, and we just asked, can we pass through, and we pay for our own water, and Edom came out with swords. When we were set to go into captivity and we were running, Edom was the ones that helped catch people and said, no, here they go, and started to send them back. And so God says, the people whom the Lord has cursed forever. It's not a love God that we're talking about. Come on.
5. Your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, Yehovah is great beyond the borders of Yisrael.
Come on.
A son honors his father, and a servant his master.
Come on.
If I be a father, where's my honor? If I be a master, where's my fear?
So hold on. I want to stop right here and I want to talk about this. Because understand that the quote unquote respect or reverence for God is relative. I get that. My understanding of respect for God is different than your understanding of respect for God. I get that. However, there has to be a standard. And I think the problem here with a lot of us all around, when I'm talking about everybody, I'm talking about Israel, everywhere we are, we do not have a universal respect for God. That's the problem. And God is telling you right here, it says, and your eyes shall see that the Lord is great beyond the borders of Israel. It's not just you. And he says, a son honor his father and a servant his master. If I'm a father, where's my honor? That's what God is asking. If I'm a father, if I'm a master, where's my honor? Where's my respect? And a lot of times we don't hear God talk like this. But we need to hear God talk like this. Because if we understand that God, imagine how you feel being disrespected. Huh? How you feel when you feel like somebody disrespects you and you ready to do whatever you're ready to do. How you feel like God feels. God said, 6 days you labor, work, party, do all those different things. On the 7th day is mine. You come to my sanctuary, you reverence my sanctuary, show me some respect. there's a certain part of reverence that I think people just don't get. Listen, you don't come, when God set up the priest, he said for beauty and for splendor. That's what he said, right? He said they made these nice clothes, these nice outfits, and it had all of these different things on it. You go up there. Aharon's sleeve, one wasn't longer than the other one.
Right.
It wasn't none of that. It wasn't none of that. When Aharon had to go up before God, God told him, you be careful how you come before me, right, lest you come in here any old way that you die not. Come to God's house with no t-shirt on.
Say what?
I said you don't come to God's house with no t-shirt on. Reverence for God means you prepare Friday evening, afternoon, Thursday night if you have to, so that your clothes are ironed, your clothes are pressed. So when you come before the great King of the universe, you come with some respect. You get called up to read the Torah, you don't come mollywop all the way up, and you don't do all that. Because it's a certain point where the time for games is up. When you come and you're prepared to speak before God, you're not speaking your own words, you're speaking before God. So guess what? You leave your words wherever your other words, your secular words belong. Not here. Mm-hmm. Don't belong here. When you come before God and you got a portion to teach, you study it and you teach it. You teach God's people with some respect. That's right. I understand we came from different places. I understand. Our representation before God needs to be representative in a manner where it positively impacts everybody, not just the people who came from the same background you came from. Does that make sense? I'm just asking, does that make sense? Because if I'm a street dude, I understand, I get that, and I'm come up here to speak, but guess what? Show some respect before God, because everybody who you reaching before God, everybody ain't street dudes. Right. And guess what? If you come up here with your street ways and your street mannerisms and all of those different things, and you have some educated people that are watching, how do you expect that educated people gonna look at some street person talking about God? They're gonna do that. I'm just saying our concept about certain things needs to change, because we need to be representatives of God all the time, representing all types of people. Being able to reach all types of people. We can't be so small-minded as to think our narrow-minded approach towards teaching God's people is going to be effective for everybody. Also, I understand when I came up to teach, when I came up to speak, I don't like to use the word teach. I choose speak because I don't feel like you teaching God's people anything, because they already know. God's people already know. God does the teaching, and Torah is already set. And I think that that's kind of part of the problem. We believe that we're teaching God's people, and we're actually not, because Torah is already set. We're not bringing anything new because Torah is already set. And how I spoke 20 years ago should not be representative of how I speak 20 years later, because I would have figured I would have grown and I would have matured at some point since then. Does that make sense? We all need to grow and we all need to mature. We have the same teaching, the same concepts, the same misunderstanding for 20 years. We just can't. And so he starts off and he says, because again, we believe we Israel and we're entitled to certain things. And God said, and your eyes are going to see, and you shall say, Yahuwah is great beyond the borders of Israel, because I represent everybody, not just y'all. I'm the God of everybody, not just Israel. I run the entire world. I'm not confined to one slot of land and a small percentage of the people as God already identified us to be. So he says a son honors his father and a servant his master. If I'm a father, where's my honor? If I'm a master, where's my fear? Come on.
Unto you, O priests that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised your name?
Again, come on.
You offer polluted bread upon my altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee?
So again, just think about it. God, the way we're looking at things and the way God is looking at things is different. And our problem is the thing is God doesn't change. And he's going to talk about this later. God doesn't change. So what God left on record for an acceptable offering was the same in 2000 BCE as it is right now. An acceptable offering is an acceptable offering that does not change. Yet he's saying you offer polluted bread, and our response is like, but how? But where? And it's interesting how the mind works, where sometimes we as a people, we as a person can be so off base with our thinking and swear we right in line. And it's crazy to me. It's amazing that we as a people can be. You ever have an argument with somebody? And listen, you saying this and they saying this, and y'all, just completely off base. And it's probably because y'all arguing and talking at each other and not really sitting down to communicate. Because the thing about communication means that you really need to sit and listen. And you need to sit and listen without being ready to immediately jump in with your response. Because if we talking, and every time there's a pause that I take a pause to swallow and you ready to jump in, I know you're not listening. Because you're ready to jump in. Sometimes I think conversations and communication can be more effective if you can just say to somebody, listen, this, and this, let's just stop a minute and you just think about that. And you do the same for me. That's why I'll text in a minute. Because I can't take the B and then you lose your train of thought. So I'll text my thoughts in a minute and then you hold that, you read it, you think about it. And I'll do the same. Because that's what communication is. But if we constantly, and if you upset and you worked up, you're not going to be able to listen. And this is what God is saying here. Not about arguments, but what God is saying is, if you stopped to take a minute, I told you that you offering polluted bread. You already ready with a response as to how. And I'm just saying, just stop a minute, look at your offering, and see if your offering is acceptable before you respond. Come on.
In that ye say, the table of Yahweh is contemptible. And when ye offer the blind for a sacrifice, is it no evil? And when you offer the lame or the sick, is it no evil? Present it now to your governor. Will he be pleased with thee? Or will he accept thy person, saith Yahweh of hosts?
Right. So God goes on to identify some of the things that he's talking about. And we're going to personalize it. We're going to personalize it a little bit because we don't have sheep and goats and all of those different things. So we're going to personalize it a little bit. If you walk in God's house and you see broken windows, a busted up table, cobwebs all over the place, and all of those different things, and you're okay with that, then that says something about you. Because just compare it to if those things were happening in your house. And how would you respond? Listen, I'm a big fan. If you're going to bring a table to God's house, bring a new table. Bring a table to God's house. Let it come in an Amazon box that somebody need to put together. Don't bring a table that you want to bring because you got an Amazon box delivered to your house, and now you need to make space for your new table, so you want to bring your old table here.
I don't want your trash.
We want Amazon deliveries in God's house. Prime. Wayfair. Overstock. Don't give us something broken down, beat up, that you had in your house for 5 years, and now you just want to get rid of it. So, like, you treating God house like this is Sanford and Son.
Right. Verse 10.
Oh, no, not verse 10, not yet. Because he says, present it now to your governor. Will he be pleased with you, and will he accept your person? And so let's look at that for a minute, because I talked about t-shirts for a minute. And again, I mean, people dress how they, and I get that. I understand that. If you can go, if you have a job interview and you can get you a shirt and a tie, neatly pressed and all of those different things, and that's how you go in a job interview, then that's how you need to come before God. Amen. Neatly pressed, clothes clean. That's how you need to come before God. That's how we need to come before God. We talk about church people, but yet there are things that church people who go to church do that we have no concept of. Mm-hmm. Because when people go to church, they put on a nice shirt, tie, they get their hats, and all of those different things, mm-hmm. and those are just their clothes. And so I know we were taught to bash people who, quote unquote, serve a different God. However, we can learn from everybody. We should be able to learn from everybody. And if you can't learn from somebody just because you believe that their concept of God is foreign, then that just says something about you. Because the only difference between someone who goes to church and someone who comes here is the graciousness and mercy that God showed you. That's it. That's the only difference. It's the only difference. Come on.
10. Oh, that there were even one amongst you that would shut the door, that you might not kindle fire on my altar in vain. I have no pleasure in you, saith Yahweh of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. From the rising of the sun until the going down of the same, my name is great amongst the nations, and in every place offerings are presented unto my name, even pure oblations, for my name is great amongst the nations, saith Yahweh of hosts.
That sounds to me like other people offering offerings other than us. Mm-hmm. And that sounds to me like God accepts offerings from other people other than us. Mm. I know those are things that we don't like to talk about. When God say things like if it was somebody that would just shut the door. Because sometimes, listen, every service before God is not acceptable before God. I just need you to hear me. Every service that we believe, and I know we don't want to hear it because every service that's put on before God is not acceptable before God, or else God wouldn't have said if there was somebody who were among you that would just shut the doors. And so I'm gonna just say this, and this is my disclaimer. I'm not saying anything negative about the Unity Shabbat that D.C.B. had. I'm not saying anything negative about the Unity Shabbat that Charlotte had. I'm not talking about anybody in particular, so that's just my disclaimer. I am, however, going to say this. I have an issue with Unity Shabbat. Because, listen, you cannot just come off the street and crawl from under the hole that you've been in for 364 days come here in a nice outfit and act like you're acceptable before God.
Right.
And people do it. You all of these different places, and you half naked, and you doing this, and you in the club Friday night, and you doing all of those different things, and then on one unity day, you show up with an African print outfit, and everybody hugging you and kissing you like you ain't been nasty for the last 364 days. Because God said, I hate iniquity with the solemn assembly. God said that. And again, I'm going to say it, I'm not casting disparagement on anything because I understand what our efforts are. And the only thing that I'm saying is our efforts need to be better because people that's been crawling under a rock should not feel comfortable to just sashay your nasty self up and come before God as if everything is okay. You should not feel comfortable to do that, and we should not make you feel comfortable to do that. Because God says, from the rising of the sun, even to the going down thereof, my name is great among the nations, and in every place offerings are presented to my name, even pure oblations. My name is great among the nations. My name is great. I don't just accept anything. I just don't accept just anybody. And I don't have to, because I'm God. Because I'm God. And I don't have to. So now, I am going to say this. I'm not saying this to say that we should take exceptions with people, because I don't believe that Torah is meant to have us hate people. We are supposed to hate actions. And if your actions cause you to do certain things, then I don't have any issue with you per se. I have an issue with what you did. And that's why when they talk about diligent inquiry and respect the persons, that's exactly what respect the persons is. I don't have an issue with you. It's all love. However, what you did, we have to judge what you did. And whatever the judgment calls for what you did, it's just what it is. They laugh and they make jokes and they say, I don't have emotions. I have emotions. God just comes first.
Fact.
God comes first. And when you exhibit emotions in a situation where you have to assess a situation's emotions don't work, because you have to assess the situation. And you can be the nicest, sweetest person in the world. Man, cool. All that. If you could be the coolest murderer that there is. If you're a murderer, you're a murderer, and that needs to be dealt with accordingly. And that's how we need to make our separations. Does that make sense? Come on.
Verse 12. But ye profane it in that ye say, the table of Yahweh is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even the food thereof, is contemptible. Ye say also, behold, what a weariness it is. And ye have snuffed at it, saith Yahweh of hosts. And ye have brought me that which was taken by violence, and the lame and the sick. Thus ye bring the offerings. Should I accept this of your hand, saith Yahweh?
I'm talking about God is real. Listen, God is real. Listen, you've been selling drugs all week.
What?
And you dropping that drug money in for a donation? Just keep it. God said, you shall not bring the hire of a harlot nor the price of a dog. Just accept just everything. He said, again, you bring that which was taken by violence. And so now, first he was talking about the priest. Now he's talking about people. He's talking about the people who are bringing the offerings at the time. You go, you knock somebody over the head. You go, you knock somebody over the head. and you take their stuff and you bring a tenth to God's house. Keep your tenth. Keep your stolen tenth. But the thing about it is God is like, listen, how dare you?
Right.
You have some audacity to sell drugs and bring drug money into God's house. I'm not talking about any particular person. I'm just talking about actions and things that people do. The lame and the sick. And he asks, should I accept this at your hand? And so what I'm saying is what I would like for us to consider right before you do whatever it is that you do, and you preparing this to bring an offering before God, just have this verse come back to your mind. Will God accept this? If you working on Shabbat to get money and you bringing 10%, and just ask yourself, is God going to accept this? Just ask yourself, because everything is like a self-assessment. Just ask yourself. Come on.
But cursed be he that deals craftily, whereas he has in his flock a male and vows and sacrifice unto Yahweh a blemished thing.
Okay, so hold on. Actually, read the rest.
For I am a great king, saith
You said
Yahweh
it again.
Sabaoth, and my name is
Said it
feared
again.
amongst the nations.
So now he said it again. He said the deceiver, cursed be the deceiver. They use this word nokel, which is like just a charlatan. Cursed be that person that you have a nice whole lamb and you bring a broke foot lamb up to God. Cursed be the person, and I'm going to talk about types, and I'm going to make the separation between types and money. Right now, I'm just talking about money and not type. Cursed be the person that you got a pocket full of money and you drop $5 in God's basket. Cursed be you. And I'm big on donating to God's house because certain things need to be done. However, I'm going to deal with type separately because money and type is different. Come on.
Chapter 2. And now this commandment is for you, O ye priests.
And so now he's going back to the priests.
If ye will not hearken, and if ye will not lay it to heart to give glory to my name, saith Yahweh Sabaoth, then I will send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessings. Yea, I curse them already, because you do not lay it to heart.
And that's the interesting thing about God. Is he telling you that we cursed already and don't even realize it? When things don't go right, and we're cursed already and don't really realize it. And that's a state of mind that we need to consider when we're not meant to be a people that struggle. We were not meant to be a people who were broke. We were not meant to be a people who are poor. We're not meant to be that. So if you are that, just consider why. And so I want to be clear. I'm not talking about one individual rich person. I'm talking about us as a people. Talking about us as a people. We as a people were not to be meant to be broke. We were not meant to be on the bottom. We were not meant to be the tail for anything. And since we are, we need to consider why. Come on.
Verse 3. Behold, I will rebuke the seed for your hurt. And I will spread dung upon your faces, even the dung of your sacrifices, and ye shall be taken away unto it. Know then that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith Yahweh Sabaoth. My covenant was with him, of life and peace, and I gave them to him in a fear, and he feared me, and was very afraid of my name.
Okay. Come on.
The law of truth was in his mouth, and unrighteousness was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and uprightness, and did turn many away from iniquity. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth. For he is the messenger of Yahweh Sabaoth. But ye are turned aside out of the way. Ye have caused many to stumble in the law. Ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith Yahweh Sabaoth.
You know, I want us to consider, and I know I'm clear that this is clearly and only talking about the Levitical priests. But I'm going to say it again. We were meant to be a nation of priests. So our actions as a nation of priests should be reflective of the requirements for the Levitical priests. And it says things like the priest's lips are supposed to keep knowledge, and people are supposed to seek law at his mouth, and all of those different things. For he is the messenger of Yahweh of hosts. And I believe that this is why they equate, because Ezra was the priest. Ezra was a priest at this time, and also the scribe. And I believe that this is why they equate this messenger that they're talking about, Malachi, being Ezra. That's just what I believe. I'm not saying that I'm just telling you that that's what I believe on where that them equating that may have came from. But listen to what he said. He said, but you are out of the way, and you have caused many to stumble in the law, and you have corrupted the covenant of Levi, says the Lord of hosts. When the flock is supposed to follow the shepherd. When the shepherd is bad, most times the flock is bad. If you notice, when the children of Israel went into captivity, everybody didn't go. The nobles went, the kings went, the higher echelon of people in those times went. A lot of the regular common folks were allowed to stay in the land. Come on.
Therefore have I also made you contemptible and base before all the people, according as ye have not kept my ways, but have laid respect of persons in the law. Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us?
You know, when they say respect the persons, respect the persons actually goes two ways. Respect of persons is you respecting a person in a good way because of the things that they do, but it's also you respecting a person in a bad way because of the things that they do, because it's talking about looking at a face. If somebody can't get a right judgment because of who they are, good or bad, that's respect the persons. Come on.
Why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother, profaning the covenant of our father? Yehuda have dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Yisrael and in Jerusalem. For Yehuda hath profaned the holiness of Yahweh which he loved, and hath married the daughter of a strange god.
So now, he went from talking about the priests to talking about Judah, and he's talking about the Judah as a people, not just the tribe of Judah, but the nation of Judah he's referring to right now. And it says that he committed an abomination in Israel and in Jerusalem, for he has profaned the holiness of Yahweh, which he loved, and have married the daughter of a strange god. So I want us to think about this for a minute, because marrying the daughter of a strange god is actually self-explanatory. You marrying someone who doesn't believe the same thing that you believe. And I know this is here, and we've all read this, but unfortunately, this holds true. The way that God feels about it held true then, and it holds true right now. So I understand that right now, men are having a hard time, Israelite men are having a hard time finding Israelite women. And Israelite women are having a hard time finding Israelite men. I get it. I understand. Slim pickings out here. Get it. We cut ourselves, we lower, we reduce the pool when we don't want to deal with polygamy. So we reduce that pool. But I get that too, because men made polygamy so just nasty. So I get that too. So I just acknowledge it all. And one of the main reasons I acknowledge it all, because to me, I have no concern about anybody but God. However, if we believe that we're going to go out and marry someone who doesn't serve the same God that you serve, and now you're going to have children, and Your children are now going to be in conflict between Hanukkah and Christmas, or Passover and Easter, and all of those different things. That's going to be a conflict that you created for yourself when you decided to marry somebody, male or female, that don't serve the same God you serve. Just bear that in mind. And then in 12, it lets you know how God feels about it.
May Yahweh cut off the man that doeth this, him that calls, and him that answers out of the tent of Yaakov, and him that offereth an offering unto Yahweh of hosts.
So this is the way God feels about when we go out, male or female, and marry someone. I mean, because I know it says daughter of a strange God. It's talking about men or women. And marry someone that doesn't serve the same God that you serve. Because what happens is, again, when you have these now co-parenting problems, like, I don't know what you want anybody else to do. You made a decision, and now you need to be responsible for the decision that you made. The unfortunate part is your decision is selfish because your decision didn't take into account what the child was going to have to go through while you, in your moment of indiscretion, loved her or him because they was cute and this and all of those different things, and you didn't think far enough ahead to understand that this would be the result on the children who are actually the ones who really matter. Selfishness is a disease. Come on.
In this further ye do. Ye cover the altar of Yahweh with tears, with weeping and with sighing, insomuch that he regards not the offering anymore, neither receives it with goodwill at your hand. Yet
And
ye
so
say,
hold on. Now, before you go into that, and this is the result of that. So he's saying, now you married the daughter of this strange God. You married the son of this strange God. And now God's not accepting your offering. God is not hearing your prayers as relates to the child. And it says, and now you're weeping and you're sighing and all of those different things because you're like, God isn't hearing me anymore. Neither is he receiving goodwill at my hand. Why? Because this was a result of what you did. And so now you need to figure out a way to fix it. Marriage is something that should not be addressed lightly. I understand the concept of shotgun weddings, but that's not. Shotgun weddings, I want to choose my words carefully because I understand that we've been taught that once a girl is lost her virginity and she's pregnant and all of those different things, I know I've been taught that means that she's now worthless. When you read in Exodus, God said the father still had a choice. Right. That if you seduce a young woman, the father still had the parents. I need to be more intentional about saying parents because I don't at any point want to leave out mother as well. Father, mother, they had a choice that if you seduce that young girl, that they had a choice to say, okay, because I understand sometimes people jump the gun. I'm not condoning it. I'm not condoning it, but I understand that it happens. And I think part of the biggest issue that we have is that we've become we just see black and white and we don't become considerate of circumstance. So, but in those circumstances, the parents have a choice, okay or nah. Nah. You a slimy dude? Nah. And guess what? You still gotta pay. You still gotta pay because you a slimy dude. Nah. Come on.
14. Yet ye say, why? Because Yahweh hath been witness between you and the wife of your youth, against whom you have dealt treacherously, though she is your companion and the wife of your covenant.
So let's take some time to talk about this.
Oh, man.
Let's take some time to talk about this. I know people teach different. I get that. Women are people too.
Say what?
Women have rights too. Women have rights too. God said all of the children of Israel are his. Children of Israel include women too. Domestic violence is not acceptable.
Say what?
I said domestic violence is not acceptable.
Amen.
And the unfortunate part is, and I know, because me personally, I've sat in places, I've seen situations where they gave the impression that women didn't have rights. They gave the impression that domestic violence was acceptable. They gave all of these different impressions where all of the repercussions and the negative went on women, but yet the men who are supposed to be the ones that were responsible, nothing happened. And so now people are upset. And so now we're upset that women are rebelling, and we're upset that women are being more quote unquote independent and all of these different things. But listen, nobody, when God said the children of Israel were not meant to be oppressed, that meant women too. That meant women too. Listen, you can't hold a woman hostage and a woman wants a divorce because you're not doing anything, but you like, no. Well, what's your reason? I ain't got one. I don't need one. It's not acceptable. And until, listen, I'm gonna tell you, when we had the youth summit with the children, there were 3 things that the youth were adamant about, whether they came from New York, Philly, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina. There were 3 things that all of them were adamant about, and one of them is how women were continually oppressed and that it was okay.
Wow.
All of them adamant about it. All in consensus. Great. And so what I'm trying to explain to you, what I'm trying to say is the impact of our silence, the impact of our silence on watching women be smacked, kicked, punched, beat, oppressed, and all of those different things, the impact of that has caused us to lose a whole generation of Israelites and are in the danger of losing a second generation. So I talk about it. And the reason that I talk about it, because at a certain point, we need to understand the impact that our lack of understanding is having on the people who we say we care about the most. So I'm adamantly against domestic violence, adamantly against it, not because I'm just against it, because Torah doesn't support that. There is no way that somebody who is a woman beater should be allowed to walk in to a Unity Shabbat. I'm back to Unity Shabbat. And I'm not saying that this happened this year. But now we know it happened. And there's no way that somebody who's a woman beater should be allowed to walk in, and just because you've been a woman beater for 40 years, you get to be called up and you get to speak. And what happens is every woman who knows every woman who have seen the results of you being an animal is cringing when they see you walk up there to go talk. That's a real feeling. I'm telling you it as a matter of fact. That's a real feeling. The women aren't being super independent now to where they're speaking out. They just couldn't speak out before because they might have got punched in the mouth. And now they're just speaking out because they have the opportunity now, because we're starting to talk about it more. Talk against it more. The wife of your youth. And I'm just going to ask you, and I'm going to tell you because I've seen it. Just imagine how you would feel seeing your mother making you breakfast with a big black eye. How do you feel? But this is the thing. Some of the Israelite men that are my age are probably apathetic to that because you've probably already seen it. And you probably don't realize how bad it affected you because some shy away from it, some pick it up. Come on.
15. Not one have done so, who had an exuberance of spirit, for what seeketh one? A seed given of God. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let
Godly
none
seed. Come on.
and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth.
Mm-hmm.
For I hate putting away, saith Jehovah, the God of Israel,
Come on.
and him that covereth his garment with violence, saith the Lord of hosts.
That don't sound like he talking about domestic violence. He said, I hate putting away, and him that covereth his garment with violence. That don't sound like domestic violence. Wife of a youth covering his garment with violence. That don't sound like that. You know, I'm gonna talk about the other. So there's this thing about power, right? There's that portion in Deuteronomy 24 where it says, if a woman do something unseemly, that he shall write her a bill of divorce and send her out of his house, right, and she shall go and be another man. I want to say two things about that. One, listen, you will be some type of dude that you just write bill of divorces willy-nilly just because you can. You must be some type of dude. However, if you write one because you mad, it's written. It's written. Mm-hmm. We talk about being men. And we talk about how men should be honored and respected and respect me and all of those different things, right? Then you need to be honorable and you need to be respectable and you need to be accountable.
Say what?
Accountable.
It's a dirty word.
I understand. I understand. And you need to be accountable. Come on.
Ye have wearied Jehovah with your words, yet ye say, wherein have we wearied him? And that ye say,
4 times.
Everyone that doeth evil is good in the sight of Jehovah of hosts, and he delights in them. Or, where is the God of justice?
And this is what I was talking about allowing just anybody to come in. And I know we don't say it per se, but when you know somebody nasty, when you know somebody filthy, and you allow them to just come in and you give them a nice award and certificate and all of those different things, then that's what you're saying. Everyone that doeth evil is good in the sight of Yahweh when they are not. If we're going to have a standard, the standard needs to be across the board for men and women. There's some nasty dudes, there's some nasty women. Nasty females, nasty dudes. Y'all all in the same bag. And we need to stop kowtowing to nasty people. Because I'm telling you, the youth see it. And if you wonder why the youth are disgruntled, if you wonder why the youth don't want to come around, if you wonder why there are problems, it's because they've seen hypocrisy in teachings and in action. And that's not me guessing. I'm just telling you what they told me. Because you can't talk about God, turn, pray, talk about God, turn, pray, and then go home and use your wife as a punching bag. Because I just want to understand, where is the godliness in that? And if you were angry when you did it, where is the godliness in that? Because Proverbs say anger rests in the bosom of a fool. So if you did it in your rage, then what does that tell you about you? We need to be particular about who we allow in. We need to be particular about who we call up to speak. And we need to be particular about all of these people who we celebrate. Now, I understand everybody doesn't have a past that's squeaky clean. I get that. But at some point, if you were one thing and you changed from that, doesn't some part of repentance say that maybe you should denounce the things that you used to do so that people aren't in conflict?
Okay.
I used to eat McDonald's.
Right.
Big Mac, special sauce.
Ooh.
Love McDonald's.
Smell good.
I don't eat McDonald's anymore. See? I'm loving it. When you have been one thing for years and you're silent about being different, you put people who listen to you and see you in conflict. Come on.
Chapter 3. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he will clear the way before me. And Yahuwah, whom ye seek, will suddenly come to his temple. And the messenger of his covenant, whom ye delight in,
Come on.
behold, he cometh, saith Yahuwah of hosts.
Come on.
But who may abide in the day of his
So
coming?
God he's telling you that the messenger is coming, but he's telling you, y'all think we wait, we want God to come, but listen, when God coming, he's saying who gonna abide is coming, because it's not gonna be sweet. Come on.
And who shall stand up when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver.
Come on.
There shall be they that shall offer unto Yahuwah offerings of righteousness.
Read it again.
And there shall be they that offer unto Yahuwah offerings of righteousness.
After the sons of Levi are purified as gold and silver, then they're going to offer that. Then they're going to offer that. Until then, not the time for offerings. Come on.
Then shall
Come on.
the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem be pleasant unto you.
Then is going to be acceptable. Come on.
As in the days of old, as in former years.
Come on.
And I will come near unto you in judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers and against the adulterers and against the false swearers and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages and the widow and the fatherless and they that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear me not, saith Yahuwah of hosts.
Come on.
For I, Yahuwah, change not, and these sons of Yaakov are not consumed.
So that change, when you read it here, is in present tense. I change not, meaning I don't do it. Right. But when you read it in Hebrew, it actually says, it's actually in past tense. It says, I, Yehovah, have not changed. Meaning the same God that I was when I gave the commandments to Moses, that's the same God I am right now. I haven't changed. The things that I gave to Israel to require them to be better and required them to do, that hasn't changed either. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob aren't consumed. Because if God is constantly changing the requirements to be acceptable, it would be like a moving target and you would never be able to achieve righteousness. And that's why anything that comes other than what commandments are, that's why it's not acceptable before God. God said, I haven't changed. From the time that I called Moses and gave Moses the law, I haven't changed. Come on. We got to get through the rest of this.
From the days of your fathers, ye have turned aside from my ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith Yahuwah of hosts. Come on. But ye say, wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you rob me. But he say, wherein have we robbed you?
Again.
In tithes and in heave offerings.
So now let's talk about this. Let's talk about tithes and offerings. We're going to spend the rest of the time talking about tithes and offerings, and then we're going to close out. I got to find this portion. It's in Numbers 18. I got to look through it. I meant to catch it, but I just want to touch on this for a minute. There's been a lot in the news about Creflo Dollar saying he was wrong about tithes. But you got to read what he said. Because what he said is not really that tithes are wrong.
Right.
What he said was, I was wrong to require people to give 10% of their earnings. They should be able to give what they want. So Creflo is not saying, don't give me money no more.
What he's saying?
He's saying, you don't have to give me 10%, just give what you can. And so obviously now other people, there was also another pastor, Caucasian American, who he went immediately on the defensive the other way, and he was like, nah, the reason that Jesus ain't come back yet is because y'all ain't giving enough money. Because people have gotten comfortable taking advantage of people in the name of God. That's the problem. So when I read what Creflo said, then that sent me into a rabbit hole of trying to understand where this concept of tithe came from. The concept of tithe being a sustainable source of income for clergy is a Christian concept. It was started from a letter from the bishops at the Council of Macon in the 500s, where the bishops sent a letter saying, we feel like we should be taken care of. Because previous to that, the tithes went, like Old Testament tithe went to the Levites and priests. And the bishop said, no, we feel like clergy people who are not Levitical should be entitled to tithes. And then the concept of tithe being a monetary increase was born from there. Wow. So I'm going to say it. Tithe is not money. I want to go into Numbers 18, and I got to find the exact verse. Okay, 24. So the first, yes. So the first verse that we're going to read is 24. And then the next verse that we're going to read is 31. Mm-hmm. So now, the first verse that he's going to read is related to the tithe. Now, we don't have time to read the whole thing. Read Numbers 18 on your own. We just going to read 18:24, and then we're going to read 18:31.
Numbers 18:24. For the tithe of the children of Yisrael, which they set apart as a gift unto Yahweh, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said unto them, among the children of Israel, they shall have no inheritance.
All right. So, no, go ahead. Read 31.
31.
Yes. Actually, no, I'm sorry. What I wanted you to read was read 21 and then read 31. That's what I want you to read. 21 and then 31.
And unto the children of Levi, behold, I have given all the tithe in Israel for an inheritance in return for their service which they serve, even the service of the tent of meeting.
Okay, now read 31.
And ye may eat in every place, ye and your household, for it is your reward in return for your service in the tent of meeting.
So now, the first tithe that they're talking about is the 10% tithe that's given to the children of Levi. And that tithe is clear as to who it goes to and what it's for.
Right.
It says, and unto the children of Levi, behold, I have given all the tithe in Israel for an inheritance in return for their service. That's your pay. Right. Because the children of Levi, they carried the articles. They did all of those different things that they did in the temple. In return for your service, as your hire, as your pay, the tithe is for you. And then when you go to the 10th of the 10th, which is the tithe of the tithe, which is now, this is the tithe that the Levites need to give to the priests. That's when you go to 31. And it says, and ye may eat it in every place, eat it in every place, you and your households, for it is your reward, which is your wages, in return for your service in a tent of meeting. So, people who come up here and teach, you're not entitled to tithe just because you come up here and teach. You're not entitled to tithe because tithe is specific to the Levites and to the priests in return for their service. You're not entitled to tithe because you're here one day a week. You're not entitled to tithe. And I understand now we try to modernize. We want to modernize some parts of the law, but we don't want to modernize all the parts of the law. So we want to modernize tithe now to say now we got money. Tithe is money. Tithe is never money. Tithe is what it is. So if you want to keep it real and you want to be 100% honest with the people, tell them, I feel like y'all should pay me for me coming in and teaching y'all the word of God, and I feel like y'all should pay me, and then give them the option to do that. Okay. But to tell someone that they're required to give tithe, and then that tithe goes to you, I'm telling you, you fit into this category where it says, will a man rob God, but ye have robbed me, and in tithes and in offerings, certain things don't go to you. Certain things do not go to you. And so clergy people have, for years, hundreds of years, centuries, made their money off of the sweat of people's backs, and people are poor and people are hungry, and they're giving their rent money for your comfort. And I'm telling you that you are a sinner before God, because that's not what tithe is. You're a sinner before God. And so we wonder why things don't go well. These are some of the reasons why things don't go well. Come on.
Ye are cursed with the curse, yet ye rob me, even this whole nation. Bring ye the whole tithe into the storehouse. Bring ye the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Bring ye the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house.
So I want to talk about a couple of things, and then I'm going to have them keep reading. When they say bring the tithe into the storehouse, it's one storehouse. Just one. That means that Israel, that one place shouldn't be collecting tithe and for their purpose, and another place collecting tithe for their purpose, and another place collecting money for their purpose, and everybody has their own purpose, and none of those purposes equal the whole of making sure God's people come together. It's one storehouse. He said, so I know people like to focus on the last part when it says, and I will open up windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that you might not be able to contain, but that's after you bring all of the tithe into one house.
Right.
So y'all, we can continue playing, collecting money here, collecting money there, collecting all of these different places, and trying to do things as individuals when we're supposed to be people, one people. We can continue playing with God if we want to. It's not going to get us to the place where we need to be, because God says so. Come on.
And try me now herewith, saith Jehovah of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall be more than sufficient. And I will rebuke the devourer for your good, and he shall not destroy the fruit of your land, neither shall your vine cast its fruits before the time in the field, saith Jehovah Sabaoth.
Because with all of the money that we as Israelites collect in the 50, 60, 90 places that are around the country, there should be no reason why Israelites are hungry. There should be no reason, with all of the money that get collected in this place and that place and all of these different places, there should be no reason that people should have to go on Facebook and beg for money to bury somebody. There should be no reason. We're not working as a people. We're not working as one people. There should be no reason why people have to go set up GoFundMe's for where, guess what? The GoFundMe takes a percentage of the money as well. Because ain't nobody doing nothing for free. And we got to set up GoFundMe's in order to eat with all of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that Israelites around this country collect. And most of it is because many of us are too arrogant to be able to get with another congregation and another one and say, I'm willing to set aside my right to teach every week in order for the better of the whole.
All nations shall call you happy, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith Yahweh of hosts. Your words have been all too strong against me, saith Yahweh Tzavaot. Yet ye say, wherein have we spoken against thee? Ye have said, it is vain to serve God. And what profit is it that we have kept his charge, and that we have walked fully in his ways, and that we have walked mournfully because of Yahweh of hosts? And now we call proud happy, yea, they that work wickedness are built up. Yea, they try God and are delivered.
Come on.
They that feared Yahweh spoke one with another, and Yahweh hearkened and heard, and a book of remembrance was written before him.
Come on.
For them that are feared, for them that feared Yahweh, and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith Yahweh of hosts, and in that day I do make even my own treasure, and I will spare them as a man spares his own son that serves him. Then shall ye again discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serve God and him that serve him not. For behold, the day cometh, it burns as a furnace, and all the proud and all that work wickedness shall be stubble. And the day that comes shall set them ablaze, saith Yahweh Tzavaot, and it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son, S-U-N, of righteousness arise with healing in its wings, and ye shall go forth and gambol as calves of the stall, and ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in that day that I do make, saith Yahweh of hosts.
Amen.
Remember ye the law of Moshe my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Yisrael, even statutes and ordinances. Behold, I will send you Eliyahu Hanabi before the coming of the great and the terrible day of Yahweh, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the father, lest I come and smite the land with destruction. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All honors, praises, respect, acknowledgement, and thanks I offer unto the great King of the universe, to the God of our fathers, to the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov, thanking him for all things and everything. I bid you in the tongue of our forefathers, probably Motzai Shabbat Shalom Lakov.